You cannot solve a problem that does not actually exist. So this is the premise of Dale Carnegie's idea to live in day-tight compartments. This is something that I tried for 30 days, and I noticed that it really did help with my anxiety levels. If you are somebody who is struggling with anxiety, I suggest that you watch this video to the end. If you're someone who struggles with watching videos until the end, I understand it's part of the burden of anxiety. It makes you have a hard time concentrating, but do your best. Do your best to watch the entire video and learn how to live in day-tight compartments and learn how overthinking and worrying leads to anxiety and what you can do to feel better today. The big idea is when we think about the future and we think about events that are coming up, we have this urge to try to do something about them, or to try to figure it out, or plan, or have some way of relieving the stress that we feel about that future event. And oftentimes, it's great to try to plan and get things organized so that you are ready for the future and ready for what is coming up ahead. But often, this can lead to an unnecessary overthinking and an attempt to try to solve a problem that does not actually exist. Now, when you hear me say that the future doesn't exist or that you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, you might feel skeptical, like, wait a minute, of course the future exists. I have to pay my rent. I have to eat. These are real things that are going to happen, and if I don't do anything about it, I'm going to be, in trouble. This is true, that there are things that need to be planned for and prepared for. And I'm not saying that you can just sit around and do absolutely nothing. The point, however, is to recognize what is in your control versus what is some imaginary scenario that you are kind of coming up with in your mind. There was a period of my life where I would be driving home and I would think about, what do I want to eat when I get home? And it would feel productive and feel important that I think about this now so that when I get there, I know what I'm going to eat and I know what I'm going to prepare. But I would always have trouble actually coming up with it. It was like I didn't really know what I wanted in that moment, or I wasn't really sure what to do. But then when I got there, when I actually got home and walked into the kitchen, it became obvious. Suddenly, what I wanted to eat was just staring right in front of me. I was like, oh yeah, I have that, or oh yeah, I do want that. And it was a much easier decision, and it took a lot less thinking. So much of your life is actually just like this if you pay attention. We go around thinking about, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do next week? How are we going to solve that problem a month from now? And in reality, when you get to the point where you do need to do something about it, the decision becomes a lot more obvious, a lot more in your face, so to speak. And the next step that you have to take is a lot easier to take in that moment because you have all the knowledge in front of you to make that decision. There's a great phrase that I found to be very true, which is, you will know what you need to know when you need to know it. So this is a way of saying that right now, as you think about the future, there's so many variables and things that might change and things that you're kind of just guessing at this point. And by trying to figure out what's going to happen next or what you should do, it's as if you are trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And of course, that feels overwhelming and frustrating because you can't actually solve the problem that doesn't exist yet. Right now, it's better to focus on the obvious next step and to focus on what is in your control rather than trying to solve an abstract problem down the road. That does not mean that you should avoid the future or never think about it at all. There is a time to plan and prepare and get organized about your life. That's very important. But if you look at your day, that typically only takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to really look into the future and kind of be aware of what's coming down the road. So let's get practical now. How do you actually practice the day-tight compartments that Dale Carnegie did? Well, it starts with getting clear on your day. What do you need to do today? Write it down. Don't let it be some vague thing in your mind. floating around, distracting you. Just get very clear on the 2 or 3 things that you really need to do today and figure out when you want to do them, how you're going to do them, and focus on that. Notice when your mind is trying to distract you with some big goal down the road or some overwhelming task that you have no idea when you're going to do or how you're going to figure it out. Be clear on today. What can you do today, and take some sort of action towards it. Take some kind of initiative to say, okay, there's a lot in my life that I'm not sure about. There's a lot that I could be doing, should be doing, etc., etc. But let's just focus on what is in my control, what can I do today, and get that done to the best of my ability. Sometimes I like to think of it as the future me is this wiser, more knowledgeable person who literally has access to more information and will be ultimately the one to handle it. For example, I've caught myself thinking about, well, what am I going to do when I am old and sick? Who's going to take care of me? What am I going to do when my parents are getting elderly? How will I take care of them? What am I going to do if there's some kind of disaster situation in the country that I live in? How am I going to handle that? Even though it's so far ahead, it feels like it's right around the corner. It feels like you have to do something about it right now. So by getting clear on what you have to do today, what is in your control today, you can kind of more easily catch yourself in those patterns of thinking about something 10 years from now, 20 years from now.